Okay, time to lock in. So, identity. Guys, I'm not gonna lie to you. There's not been many things that are actually like cheat codes in life. The plain and boring answer is that the measurable 1% steps really amounts to anything meaningful, anything worth doing. That's the reason James Clear even has a career in the first place, right? But if there's one thing that I can mention, it's this. It's identity. Identity is one of the few cheat codes which, understanding it, will transform the way you act, will transform literally every piece of progress you make in life. So please, if you haven't yet, lock in for this one. So the way every decision essentially is reached in your life is you get a certain input from the environment, whether that's sensory input, you see something, whether you hear something, whatever the case may be, you get an input and you make a decision based on that information. You get information, you make sense of it using your brain, and then you make a decision which leads you to act. Or maybe not even that. To put this into perspective, imagine me getting the same stimulus as this guy, Tom Aspinall, and let's say the stimulus, the outside information which we perceive is, let's go train. It's either our coach tells us to train, or, we just feel like it's time to go to training or something like that. If I got this information into my brain and I tried to perceive it, I would be like, you know what, I am quite a disciplined person. I've been training for the past 5 years pretty consistently. So, there's like an 80% chance that I'll go train. Sometimes I do skip trainings and I'll go about, 5 days a week maybe because, I have a rest day here and there and then I just won't even consider it, right? If Tom Aspinall got the same exact fucking information as me, okay, he would go 100% of the time because that's just who he is. That's his identity. Furthermore, he'd go twice a day. It's just what he does, okay? He doesn't need convincing. That's him. Notice how this is the exact same thing in both instances. The difference is my identity, when it comes to the frame of training, is weaker than his. Why is it that you keep telling yourself, I will lock in. I will finally hire someone for my team. I'll finally get the new habit of going running every single day. You tell yourself that you'll do these activities, yet you're still the same exact person. You're surprised when nothing fucking happens. And the craziest thing isn't just, okay, nothing fucking happens. Okay, your identity was tested and it was found out to be weak one time. You repeat this. Nothing changes and you expect different results. How crazy is that? It's like, you're spamming this input and you're assuming that something will change. But if we look at it like a mathematical equation, if the input is the same, and if the thing that modifies the input, the two variables, x and y, is the same, and if in the first equation, x and y equals z, and you fucking do it again, x and y will still equal z. Like, are you retarded? So, if you want to react to the input of x in a different way and not get Z, not get the output of not doing anything and not changing your life, the only thing you're left with essentially is to change Y, which is your identity. It's you. It's not the wholesome advice of, oh, you're perfect as you are. Like, deep down, as your soul, as your consciousness, obviously you're perfect as you are. You can't be flawed. You were created in the image of God. But you as a person, your body, your mind, you're not okay as you are, and I think you need to hear that. And that's okay, by the way. There's no shame in that. Luckily, that's the thing which you actually can change. So how do you go about this? If you're tired of getting these results and you want, A, B, or C results, something different than what you're already getting, how can you finally get it? Obviously, it's with changing what you put into the equation, but I'm going to teach you how to do that. So what most people expect is, they start working and they see the results instantly. This is how their money goes up. Let's say this is $0 and this is $10K. And then you just go up in a few months' time. That's, the output. A bit smarter people tend to understand that, okay, I can't actually control how much money I make because making money is an output. All I can control is the input. All I can control is me doing the tasks that get me money. I need to do those before I get money. So realistically, if this is the graph of the output and this is the graph of the input, we understand that input has to come before action, and maybe a month or two after we start inputting, the correct steps, we will get the outcome. So what smart people do, and you should hear this if you read like non-fiction self-improvement books, is you should judge yourself based on inputs because that's actually what you can control. Not earning this amount of money, but putting the amount of work hours in. It's not getting leaner, it's eating clean and going for a run every day. Those are the things which you actually can control. I'm going to argue something that I haven't really heard argued on like mainstream self-improvement forums yet, and that's that something even precedes this, and that's identity. Because listen, if you've been trying to put in the input, if you've been telling yourself, just like in this example, go train, go train, go train, and you haven't been doing it, Clearly, it's not working. You've been wanting to get rich. You've been wanting to get fit. You've been wanting to change your life. It's not working. Okay, you can keep spamming the same fucking thing, but just like in this example, we got the same outcome with the same variables. We're gonna keep getting that. Nothing's gonna change if nothing changes. So what can you do? You can change your fucking identity. Because if you're a different person, just like in this example again, if you're Tom Aspinall, you'll go fucking train. Unlike me, okay? So identity precedes everything. Please write that down. One of the biggest reasons why identity is this big of a cheat code, in my opinion, is because of the bargaining or the don't versus shouldn't mindset. Imagine if, your friend tells you, so let's go eat McDonald's. You, or, this character of the loser, I'm sorry to this guy, but his image is what I'll be using for this example. Let's say this loser responds with sure. Done. Okay, now you're doing the bad thing. But let's say this loser is trying to improve his life. Let's say he's saying, I don't know, man, I really shouldn't because, I'm trying to diet, etc., etc. But then his brain's like, it will be tasty, you should, and then you start visualizing the McDonald's, your dopamine starts arising. But then you're like, yeah, but it's really unhealthy and I really shouldn't. And then your brain's like, oh yeah, but we exercised yesterday, so it won't really matter because we've already burnt off those calories. And then you'll be like, yeah, but those seed oils and still those fucking, it will add a lot of adipose tissue and it will bloat my stomach. And then your brain's going to be like, yeah, but there's this coupon and it's almost free food because, there's a 40% off the McTasty or whatever the fuck it's called. And then you end up in this bargaining mindset. And sure, you might not end up buying in the end, but you know what's even better than this? It's when your identity says, I don't. Because then it's no longer a discussion. You've probably understood this in one area of your life at least, where, you get the stimulus to do something and you would have responded a different way in the past, but you literally don't even fucking think about it anymore. This guy, if he got talked, he doesn't even, first of all, have an environment where this is realistic for it to happen. But let's say he gets told by someone who is close to him to let's go eat to McDonald's. He's like, what? Oh yeah, that's like the fast food restaurant, right? I don't know. He can't really visualize it because he hasn't fucking had it in 5 years. But even if he had, he identifies as an athlete. He's a fighter. You don't do that if you're a fighter. You don't eat McDonald's and this kind of food. He's just going to be like, no, I don't do that. Do you understand how big of a difference I shouldn't and I don't is? With shouldn't, you'll start ping-ponging in your mind. You'll be like, yeah, but this, yeah, but that. And then you're going to, end up on one side. You're either going to buy or either you're going to not. This guy, you don't do anything with him. You don't bargain with him. You don't shouldn't yourself into any kind of decision. He says, I don't do that. There's a part of your mind which wants comfort. There's a part of your mind which wants these instant dopamines you've taught yourself are so valuable. But once you shut it down and once you don't even end up giving it a shot at talking to you, life becomes a whole lot easier. And the problem I have with, doing this gradual deloading thing, when you're addicted to something, the biggest piece of advice is to gradually deload it. Like, maybe with cigarettes it works. I've never been a smoker. But the problem I have when it comes to binge eating or whatever the case may be is I was never able to do this personally. Every single time anything like this actually stuck for me, it was out of a place of identity. It was out of a place of me saying, I don't do that anymore. That way, you don't even give in to the temptation, because if we can minimize the amount of temptation we feel, we will inevitably have an easier job at not indulging in the activity. This way, he literally had the stimulus for like 2 seconds and he was like, no, I don't do that. This way, you can literally spend fucking minutes, if not hours, ping-ponging this temptation in yourself. I'm not even going to lie to you. When I used to eat a bunch of fast food, I wasn't fat or unhealthy by any means, but even when I was going to the gym and stuff, I was still eating fast food. I was still eating unhealthy for quite a while. And I got a craving, let's say in the morning, and I kid you not, I was ping-ponging this craving inside myself for the whole ass day. And I ended up ordering at night because I was like, I really shouldn't. Oh yeah, I'm going to go train. But yeah, you still shouldn't because this and that. And I was literally ping-ponging twice or 3 times an hour. And I ping-ponged 10 or 15 times. And I went this side, that side, this side, that side. And I was like, I shouldn't, I really should, I shouldn't. And then I just ended up giving in hours later. That's not only did I, not go with the don't mindset, and I actually ended up giving in because of the shouldn't mindset, I wasted so much mental energy and capacity on this one thing. So if you take one thing, please, take this mindset. We don't negotiate with terrorists. There's a part of your brain which is really the devil. It really is only optimizing for your downfall. Usually it's the part of your brain which is regulating for instant dopamine, instant comfort, instant gratification. And that is very, very rarely good for us humans, especially with this modern environment where stuff like hormones, like dopamine, is, spiked more by these artificial things, such as these, sweeteners, preservatives, and even worse, like, drugs and stuff like that. Your brain is going to tell you to do things which you don't really want to do. Your logical brain knows it's bad. Stop negotiating with it. If you go into negotiations, sure, you're going to be able to negotiate with it here and there. But the best success rate, the 100% success rate, is if you don't even just fucking talk to it at all. Finally, I know you're all on the edge of your seat trying to learn how to actually change your identity. Just wait a minute, you're going to get some. Chill out. Listen. If you're in this state of mind, if you have beliefs about yourself, which everyone does, congratulations, you're a normal human, some of these beliefs are inevitably not going to be positive. It's not going to be beliefs that you realistically want to hold about yourself. As a matter of fact, even if they're negative, quite a lot of your negative beliefs aren't even fucking true in the first place. So whenever you find yourself thinking a thought which you don't want to be thinking, first of all, if that's what interests you, then check out my previous video, because I talk about this quite a lot. It should be popping up on screen. If it's not, then just check out my YouTube channel, because I forgot. Anyway, if you are not happy with your thoughts and your beliefs, and you want to actually change your beliefs about yourself, because essentially your beliefs about yourself are what change your identity. Remember, I said something like you're an athlete, you're a boxer, you're a fighter. If that is what you believe about yourself, your identity is inevitably going to be formed around that. So if you actually want to change your identity, you must change your beliefs. How do you change your beliefs? The way you change your beliefs is you gather evidence. So whenever you get a thought, first of all, you need to be mindful enough to actually realize your thoughts and realize the things which your subconscious mind is doing for the most part. You can make it conscious. Again, if that's something that really interests you, then check out my previous video. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to realize that we got this thought, and we're going to list out if it's true or not. We're going to list out the positives and the negatives. I mean, not the positives and the negatives of holding the thought, but rather the positives that we can back up this thought with, and the negatives which we can contradict this thought with. So let's say if you get the thought that I am ugly, you have the belief that I am ugly, you realize that you've been acting out this belief in your life, you're going to be like, wait a minute, why do I believe that? Now, the why isn't that important. The most important question actually is it true? Because, we can psychoanalyze ourselves, and we can be like, oh yeah, it's because that girl bullied me in 3rd grade and this and that. But realistically, the best thing we can do, which will actually help us rather than just talking about it, is realizing if it's true or not. Most of the times, if we cling on to this kind of negative belief, it's not going to be true. And we can realize that quite easily. So if you take a step back and analyze it like a scientist in an experiment, and you're like, how can we prove that this is true factually? You can start getting ideas about it. And you can be like, wait a minute, I've actually been getting looks when I'm walking on a street. And even if you haven't, maybe it's because you're fucking normal. Maybe it's because you're not ugly. And, people who are ugly, usually it's because, well, this is going to sound a bit mean, but it's not because of genetics, okay? It's usually because you don't even give a shit about yourself. And I'm not going to go into this very specific belief here, but you get the point of it. The thing you want to actually do is you want to go down this path of writing out, is this true? Is it untrue? And you're going to gather evidence. Now, you might actually come to the conclusion, hold on, I am ugly, but I need to get a better haircut. I need to start grooming. That's amazing, because now the control is in your possession. You also might think, wait, I am, broke. I am poor. Maybe that's true, but is it actually serving you thinking that way? Can you actually tell yourself a different story? Most of the time, it's not even as simple as just holding a belief about yourself like this. Most of the time, the evidence you hold is very conflicting. So, for example, if this is every single belief you have, and this is the negative beliefs, and these are the positive ones, quote unquote, you could actually optimize your whole life around being broke and being in this negative state of mind. And you're like, damn, I don't have money. Damn, my date flaked on me because she saw my car. Shit like this, right? Or you could focus on the fucking positive ones. So an example I always say in this regard is with discipline, because discipline is a very, very easy one to get confused when it's not actually that tough. So there are some areas of your life where you are disciplined. Just to prove it, discipline is doing an act many times over and over, especially when you don't feel like it, right? You do things quite often. You didn't have to wake up today at that time. You didn't actually have to. You chose to, and you did it. And if you didn't wake up on time today, you maybe went to the gym. The thing is, you did something right. And even if, this is the positives and this is the negatives, you can choose to focus on the positives. You can actually choose to make your identity positive, even if it isn't entirely factually true, because that way you can choose to think in a positive way, and that will serve you very well in the future. So a final example to actually make sure you understand this is, let's say in terms of money, you're not actually that rich. You don't have a lot of money in your bank account. You're making okay money with your job. But the thing is, you keep seeing that there aren't many zeros in your bank balance. You keep telling yourself, oh damn, I'm so broke. Damn, I'm not good at financial management. When in reality, what you're doing with your money is you're buying courses, you're buying books, you're actually learning from mentors. And your financial management is within the 1%, the top 1% of your age group. You could be like, I'm a master at making money. Literally, that's a belief that you could hold. You could be like, I'm going to surpass everyone because I know so much more than them. All of this is positive, even though on the surface level, when someone inspects your life and they're like, okay, you're making okay money, you have very low money, etc., and gives you this spreadsheet of facts, you can be like, yeah, but you don't know what I know, The objective evaluation of you, what people see, isn't all that objective, okay? You're the one that knows the fucking information, and you know that there's a bunch of positives. You just choose to focus on the other shit that people are calling you out on, probably. And it doesn't make any sense. So if you just focus on the positives, however cringe that may sound, and convince yourself of the beliefs that are no longer true, such as this one, then maybe you're going to step into a more positive identity for the future. But this can sound a bit wishy-washy, so let me ground all of this in example. The things you think about yourself and the beliefs you have, you can't just change it like that. You actually have to give yourself evidence. Now, the two parts to that, actually, focusing on the right evidence and actually focusing in on the positives and not being in this fucking shit pussy-ass frame of mind, which is constantly deterring you from your goals and actually being the kind of person who gets what they want. The other way you can change yourself is by literally changing yourself, is by literally acting in a way where your ideal version of yourself would go. Making the decisions which your ideal version of yourself would make. So you can recognize right now, maybe even after focusing in on the positives, you're like, hold on, realistically, I'm just not that guy yet. But how can I make myself that guy? It's by acting that way. It's by putting in the reps and making that my identity. Of course, this comes back to this point, okay? If you want to go on a 5K run, maybe you're just not fucking capable of doing that. So let's say, for example's sake, you decide to go on a 1 kilometer run. That's the input which you get. You have that decision to make. Maybe it's a reminder you set for yourself because it's a goal of yours. Maybe you just get the idea. That's the input, right? And then, it goes into your identity. Let's say, because, sometimes you can get yourself. Sometimes you're in the perfect mood and et cetera, Sometimes it works. But let's say this only works because you're a fat fuck. Let's say it only works like 12% of the time, because realistically you're just not in that good of a mood. It would require you to be in a very, very good mood, have the right thoughts at the right time, low traffic, sun's not too hot, etc., right? It would require all the circumstances to be perfect. But imagine if you just said walk around the block. That's like 200 meters, very easy. You wouldn't even have to probably start sweating at that rate. And you just put that into your identity. And you were like, okay, can we walk around the block then? That should be like a 96% success rate, even if you're a fat fuck, okay? It's very cringe. I promise you, it's the cringiest thing ever, but baby steps work. The reason people actually say this is because no one has the discipline to fucking kill their ego and start with this, but this is the way you acquire skills. This is the perfect example because it's really like trying to run a marathon and you're like, oh, come on, why can't I get myself to run a marathon? Bitch, just run. Put your shoes on and start running. It's not that hard. It's because you keep comparing yourself to these motherfuckers up here. You're like, how can he train every single day twice? Because he's fucking done it for 15 years. Do you not understand? He is the person, identity, that's what we're talking about, right? So start small, build up the identity, and if you don't have the identity, the best you can do is just focus on what you do have. Because in some realm of life, you have the identity. Another very good example of this is confidence, right? What is confidence? Confidence is being secure with yourself, knowing that you have the ability to do something. Where does confidence come from? It comes from the past. If you've done something a bunch of times before, you're going to be confident in your ability to do it again. However, another thing you can do, going back to, this example of borrowing experiences and focusing on the positives, imagine if I learned French quite quickly in the past, and now I'm learning German. I could be like, yeah, but I haven't learned German. I'm bad at German. Or I could focus on, being a bit creative with it. And I'd be like, hold on, I've learned languages. Yes, they've been different languages. I've acquired skills in the past before. I could fucking focus on that. I could keep telling myself that story instead of saying that, oh, I don't know German, I don't really like the language. I could focus on the negatives, just like in this example, or I could, be a bit creative with it and still choose the positives which I can choose from. All comes down to this, giving yourself all of the leeway which you need when transforming your existing mind, but also adding to it and changing yourself, which brings me to my final point. Self-story. The book, The Diary of a CEO, had, I think in chapter 8, the title, Never Sacrifice Self-Story. It tells a story about Chris Eubank Jr., who got faced up against an opponent when he was just like 12 years old, who was much bigger than him. Weight classes exist for a reason. His opponent was much more experienced, he was bigger, and he was just a better fighter. And he had no chance. His brain was screaming at him, quit the fight. Don't fight this guy because you're going to get knocked the fuck out. It's not going to end up well. But he had, as he was about to leave, he had this final thought where he was like, no, I can't do that. Because if I do, that's a part of my self-story from that day on. My brain, my identity will give me this bullshit from this day on that I'm a type of person who quits in face of adversity. I know that I'm going to get beat the fuck up, but if I quit, that's even bigger of a loss. Because then, in my next fight, I'm going to be that bit more likely to quit. Because that's just who I am from that day on. So what he did was he said, fuck you to everyone else, doubting him. He went into the fight, and he got beat the fuck up. It wasn't nice. There is no twist in the story. He didn't win the fight, but he classified it as a win for himself. Because from that day on, there was nothing worse that could come his way. That is a fucking amazing story, because that is self-story at its finest. Listen, when you're in the gym, and when you have 3 more reps in reserve, but you stop pushing the weight just because it hurts a bit, it doesn't matter that no one else knows. It doesn't matter that you're panting, trying to show everyone how hard you're working. You know. You know. That's all that matters. And all of this transpires. As I said, you can borrow experiences and focus on whatever you want to when telling yourself about your self-story and about your identity as a whole. I used to be this kind of guy, and that's where it gets to me, this thing, and that's why I value this so much, because I was literally that guy who would run like 4.2 kilometers. I would tell my friends that I run almost 5. Because I would stretch the truth as much as possible to like conflate my sense of like my appearance to others, right? Literally nowadays, I literally just say 4. Even if anything, if I even tell them, right? First of all, I don't even speak unless I'm asked, because why the fuck would I? I give people advice when they ask for it. I give people information out about myself when they ask for it. There's no reason for me to act otherwise. And even if they do, I don't blow this shit out of proportion. I'm like, it was kind of a, mediocre run today. I ran 4 kilometers. If anything, I shoot under. All of this transpires. If you tell yourself that you're going to push yourself to absolute failure at this set and you don't, you fucking know. You will have the identity of a quitter, and when it comes to your business task, when it comes to cold calling 40 people today, you're going to cold call 25 at best, because that's just who you are. It all comes back to this. Literally, the input is going into your identity, and since your identity is that of a pussy, what do you expect? A wise man once said, in business, when you're in the beginning and you're the only person in your business problems are personal problems. Literally, it's the same exact thing. And if you can't scale your business, if you're under 100K a month, it's usually something to do with you. You could take that in the wrong way and be like, wait, no, it's my market. Oh, why is this guy telling me about this and that? Or you could be like, wait, that's actually kind of liberating. It is my fault. And if I just locked in once and for all, then I could be able to get more out of this. So the way to change your identity is to understand that there's literally nothing in life other than, your environment, the stimulus, your thoughts, etc., the things telling you to do things, and how you react. That's all that makes your decisions. And since, you can somewhat change your environment, you can somewhat change where you are, and I'm not trying to downplay that matters, but the biggest thing is always going to be your identity. It's always going to be this guy in the middle who's making the decisions. If you don't change that, you're going to be stuck in this perpetual cycle of telling yourself one thing, getting the same result, and not understanding like a fucking retard. Understand that your output-based goals of earn this much a month are okay. But, if you were smart, you would probably set input-based goals, or even better, you would judge yourself based on identity, based on focusing on positive things, based on running that extra mile when you promised yourself that you would, stuff like that. Because that's essentially what's behind all of your success, and I mean that. If you can change who you are, the input will become easy, which means the output will become inevitable. And you do that by exiting this fucking bargaining ass mindset. You don't negotiate with terrorists. You know, parts of your brain are moving like prime ISIS in 2013, man. Whatever your goal is, just make yourself this reference statement of, I don't do X. I'm the type of person who goes for a run. I'm the type of person who doesn't smoke. Simple as. Can be positive, can be negative, but you don't. Instead of you shouldn't or I try not to, bitch, shut up. You don't do that anymore, okay? You stop doing the bad shit, you focus on the good stuff which you already are doing, and even if it looks like there isn't any, I promise you there is. Even if it's not within the same realm of things, you can transfer evidence into different things, such as the language example. Even if I don't know German, I have acquired skills in the past. How would this be any different? Finally, the thing which will keep it all together is actually just being honest, especially with yourself. If you tell yourself you're going to do something, do it. And understand that your actions have consequences. If you start cheating, lying, not fulfilling your promises and all that, that's who you're going to become. If you start quitting in face of adversity, just like, Chris Eubank Jr. almost did, you're going to become the guy who quits. You're going to become the quitter, the loser. If that's something you're willing to put up with, then fine, more power to you, but I'm not. And if you've watched the video this far, you probably aren't either. So that's how to change your identity and literally unlock the cheat code to life. By the way, I have a course which I used to sell for money on beating procrastination. If you want to access it for free, click the first link in the description. Goodbye.